What's up, Weirdo Swarm? You are listening to Podagon Infinity, the podcast that opens the door to all things King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. My name is Joe.
And my name is Spenser. Joe, does something feel and look a little different to you?
Yeah, it does indeed. I can see you. I'm looking at you right now while recording the show. And for those of you that might not know, I don't know if we have really touched on this before or not, but typically we record remotely from each other, just over a call, and then I edit our audio tracks together later. But today we're doing something different. We're in the same room.
Yeah, we're in the same room for once. We're at my house. It's just more convenient to go remote more often than not because we live about 25, 30 minutes apart, and the main road we take to get to one another, traffic can be a headache if it's any time of day other than like 4 a.m. So
yeah, pretty much.
So everything worked out in our favor. We got to record in person for the first time, and yeah, this is exciting. The fact that we're in the same room together, and the fact that we're talking about a pretty cool album today.
Yeah, so not only is our recording method a little different, but the album we're talking about today is a bit different as well. A weird, unique one from the discography. We're talking about the winner of our listener poll that we put out on social media. It is Sketches of Brunswick East.
Yeah, so big thank you to all of you who voted and gave us your thoughts and your opinions on which album we should talk about next. Of course, we will get to all of them eventually, moving forward into the future. But for those curious, some of the final standings here, the closest runners-up behind Sketches in the fan vote were second place with 4 votes was Made in Timeland. 5 votes, for reference, was what Sketches got. And this is between all of our social media profiles, all the socials, emails, DMs, all of that. We kind of totaled them all up at the end. Also, 3 votes apiece for Murder the Universe and Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. So that's what came close. We will get to those eventually, like I said, but yeah, Sketches is the winner, and like you were hinting at, Joe, kind of an oddball in the discography for the band, but fun one, and this will be a great one to get into.
Yeah, definitely an oddball. I was kind of surprised to see that, see this album get so much love and attention and so many votes for our poll out there. But I mean, I'm happy to do it. This is one I've looked forward to, and it's a weird, quirky little guy. So I'm excited to dig into it.
Maybe that's an early contender for episode title, Weird Quirky Little Guy.
Weird Quirky Little Guy of an album.
We will also meet some weird quirky little guys, literally and metaphorically speaking, as we go through the various tracks on this album. But before we get into the track by track in the background of this album, just a quick reminder, if you want to send us a question or a comment or a story or anything, please feel free to do so. You can comment on any of our posts on any of our social media accounts, or you can send us a DM at Podagon Infinity on all the socials, Blue Sky included. Also, you can email us, podagoninfinity@gmail.com. No listener messages to get to this week, so let's roll right into a little bit of that album background now.
Let's do it. So Sketches was released on August 18th, 2017, making it the third album of 2017 of the year of our Lord 2017. Actually released in between Murder of the Universe and Polygon Dwanaland, which are 2 behemoths of albums that, of course, we have yet to cover on the show here. We're a little intimidated by them, but we'll get to them eventually. But a weird, quirky little project to come out between those 2 big concept albums. Very progressive, very involved, let's just say. So Sketches is actually a collaborative effort with American pop group Mild High Club, and I use the word group loosely because Mild High Club is actually a solo project by LA-based musician Alexander Breton. However, he does have a backing band that he performs with on stage when he is playing live. While collaborations with some other artists have come out since then, such as 2022's 3-track EP Satanic Slumber Party with fellow Melbourne band Tropical Fuckstorm, Sketches remains the only full-length studio album collab that Giz has taken part in.
Yeah, so that's part of what I think makes this album so unique and so odd within the discography. We'll get to some of the other reasons for that as we go through the track by track, but it was really interesting digging into some of the background details on this album because I found out, first of all, not only is it kind of the popular impression among fans that this is jazzy, it was really seen that way by Australia at large. This album was actually nominated for Best Jazz Album of 2017 at the ARIA Music Awards based in Australia. So yeah, this actually got some acclaim. It didn't end up winning that award, but it got that nomination, which in and of itself, right,
that's
pretty high profile. Absolutely. Also, this album draws from several different unique sources, including some Ethiopian jazz, less so the American form of jazz, although the title of the album, Sketches of Brunswick East, is heavily inspired by the legendary Miles Davis's album, Sketches of Spain. But to be honest, for most of its jazzy characteristics, there's a little bit less overlap with kind of the American brand of jazz on this album than you would have heard on Changes. For those who haven't heard that episode yet, episode 15 of our show, go back and listen to that one. That's a little more, I think, a little more fitting of the American side of, jazzy influences. But, bottom line, Jazz jazz, it's going to pick right back up here on this release.
Just to touch on one other little bit of background as far as how this guy Alex and the band ended up working together in the first place. So Mild High Club played at GizFest 2016, which was a music festival the band used to put on. Alex hung around with the band for a few weeks and had several voice memo recordings of song ideas that he referred to as sketches that would eventually be shared with and completed by Giz. Brunswick East, by the way, is a neighborhood. It's a little section of the city of Melbourne, and not too far from us over here on the east coast of the U.S., there's actually a town right over in Jersey called East Brunswick. So we have kind of the opposite, and I always make that local connection in my head, but it's Brunswick East over there.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think of that, but you're right. Yeah, East Brunswick, not too far away, a home of Rutgers University, that New Brunswick area.
Yeah, a little further North Jersey.
Yeah. But Brunswick East, to go into a little more detail as to what it means to the band in a further sense, several of the band members currently live there. They grew up kind of scattered around a few other communities in the area around Melbourne, but as I understand it, at least as of the time of this release, most, if not all, the band members were living within fairly close proximity to one another within Brunswick East. It was also home to their label at the time, the record label Flightless. So that's where Flightless was based. That's where the building physically was. And we actually saw recently, Joe, a post on the KGATLW subreddit that building was sadly torn down recently.
It was. I was just looking at that the other day and thinking, wow, the timing of this is crazy. We're just about to record our episode talking about this album, and the very building where it all happened and where a lot of their music happened is gone now. So a little sad to see. It's like such a piece of Giz history there, and I'll never get to visit it now, but we'll have to find some other landmarks to add to the bucket list someday.
There will be. I'm sure there will be. I want to talk about the album artwork a little bit. You brought the vinyl with you.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting right next to you there on the couch. It's very psychedelic in nature, as are many of the band's releases, but you see this cityscape, and it's very kind of rough and ready looking, intentionally. This, of course, is made by Jason Galea, but you see this kind of building edifice. Several of the band members are peeking out of windows and doors and other openings, but around them in the surrounding cityscape, there's just there are crumbling roadways and sidewalks. There's rubble in various places, speaking to some of the discord and the mystery that really infiltrates the sounds of this album, and I can't wait to talk about some of those. But basically, the centerpiece of the album artwork is 253 Lygon Street, which, dusted on Lygon Street, one of the songs we'll talk about today, but 253 was the address of that former Flightless headquarters.
They doxed themselves on the album cover here.
Themselves, yeah. Although, within the yellow pages or the white pages, whatever they have in Australia, I'm sure that was, as a business,
public,
was probably...
Right, yeah, registered business, it's going to be public info anyway, but I didn't really learn all the background about their building and everything until researching this episode, and I had this vinyl already, and I spent a lot of time looking at the artwork. I never picked up on the 253 and made the whole connection. Like, oh, that's their address. That's the Flightless HQ in the Brunswick East neighborhood of Melbourne. So really cool stuff. This is one of those album covers you could really spend a good amount of time staring at and find new details in.
Absolutely. So that's some of the background of this album. We'll, of course, give plenty more details and fun factoids as we get into each of the songs. A couple more things I want to hit on really quickly. Stu said in a press release for the album at the time it came out in the summer of 2017, we were listening to compilations of Ethiopian music from the 1960s and 70s a lot, so kind of backing up our claim about that Ethiopian jazz. And Joe, you actually shared a track with me earlier this week, or a piece recently.
Yeah.
We also, from a musical standpoint for this album, for you, the listener, If possible, we recommend you listen to this album on a pair of good quality headphones. That can go for pretty much any Giz album, but this album, I would say, just like almost more than any other release of theirs, if you don't have like solid quality headphones, there are all kinds of cool nuances and weird quirks in the soundscape of this album that you might miss out on. So if it's within your power, definitely get a good set of headphones for this release.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, Joe, you ready to get into the track by track?
Sure thing, let's get right into it. This is part one of the title track that is split across the entire album. This is Sketches of Brunswick East 1.
So this is the main motif of which we will hear 3 different iterations on this album. We will hear Sketches of Brunswick East 1, and then later on 2 and 3, each occupying their own separate tracks. This was written by Stu and the aforementioned Alex Breton, he of Mild High Club. You hear a little bit of studio chatter at the beginning, and I like when an album or a song starts off this way because you get really a sense of space. You know, these are artists creating something great in their recording space, you know, in the space where it all happens. And you can kind of picture yourself there. Mm-hmm. And I think what I hear in the chatter here is go again. And somebody else says, yeah. Go again? Yep. And then start the piano keys. It's like, okay, you kind of get put into that place of, okay, they've ostensibly done a couple of takes of this song, they're doing it again, and you are like a fly-on-the-wall observer of this all coming together.
Yeah, I love that sort of thing, too. I love the feeling like I'm right there in the studio with them, or seeing a little sneak peek, or hearing a little something that maybe you weren't meant to hear. Like you said, fly-on-the-wall kind of thing, like, I'm not one of the band members. I don't work in the studio or as an engineer or anything. I shouldn't be hearing this. This is stuff that's normally cleaned out of songs, and you get this perfect polished thing. But I kind of like that feeling of a fly on the wall kind of thing, and hearing these little extra bits in the studio.
That's Alex Breton on the piano, by the way, which sounds, I have in my notes, old, detuned, and cool.
Yeah.
That piano just sounds so ancient. The keys definitely feel slightly out of tune. Just with those opening few keys. Dun, dun, dun. It feels like a piano that you would have had to blow dust off the keys as you walk up to. And that adds to so much of the cool feel of this track, I think. You also have Stu, of course, playing the flute. He plays a ton of that on this album. The flute itself also sounds off in a way. Maybe it's just a little bit loose in the way he's playing. There are a lot of imperfections, compared to maybe something like Hot Water, which was released 3 years earlier on Mind Fuzz, which was a little more of a tight performance, maybe a little bit more edited. But you hear so many imperfections and like proverbial bumps in the road with a lot of the instruments being played here. I don't know. It almost evades words for me how cool that makes it sound.
Yeah, I also feel like the bass sounds a little out of tune or something because, at this point, if you're hearing this episode, you would have seen by now we put out a little video of us playing this intro track. Spenser taking the parts of the flute and playing them on his keyboard, and I was playing the bass. And when I was first learning it, I would try to play along to the song, and I'm playing the right frets. I'm playing it as good as I can, but it still sounds slightly out of pitch. So I have to believe that I don't know if on purpose as an aesthetic choice or what, but I think some of the instruments are a little out of tune and weird to play right along with.
A couple of the other instrumental credits here. Cook plays the guitar on this track, and also Cavs does a whole bunch of stuff, not just the drum kit. He plays the drums, the jazzy brushes, he plays the maracas, which you can hear about 35 seconds or so into this opening track. You can hear the floor tom, the vibra slap, which we spoke about on an earlier album. I believe Rattlesnake was where that made a previous appearance. And then he also plays the bongos for a spell. So there's a lot going on, even though this opening track doesn't feel too crazy or too overwhelming with layers instrumentally. But I like how much, when we look at the album credits here, who plays what instrument, it is so diverse and all over the place, and you can see, as a listener and as a fan, just how much went into the production of this record.
One other thing I wanted to touch on just about the melody and the sound of the song in general, it's neither happy nor particularly dark sounding in my opinion, but I feel like it gives more of this like inquisitive and curious sort of feeling. Like it feels like a perfect opener in a way because it's kind of like, what are we getting into here? This is weird. This is something different. Not necessarily bad or sad or scary, but not like fun and bouncy and happy either. It's a weird in-between purgatory.
I'm kind of coming up with a little moving picture in my mind, if you will. Something about that flute melody, which I know all too well after having practiced it for playing on the keyboard for our little video we put out that you've seen by now, that just that tune, do 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 do. I almost picture a mischievous little kid like running around town, then peeking around a corner, like he's gonna set a little strike a match and then set a little trash barrel on fire. like nothing that's going to be crazy, like, criminal stuff. But, there's maybe a little light mischief, maybe something, something lurking beneath the surface that you, the listener or viewer, are not quite aware of yet. But I like the way that you put that. Kind of evokes a little mystery, a little inquisitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, for just a little more background on this track and sort of this main motif of Sketches as a whole, in 2017, the band hosted an impromptu demo live stream online, and an early version of this main theme was first heard on that demo live stream. That later got released on Demos Volume 1, Music to Kill Bad People 2. I just love the way these demos are named by the band. That's available, by the way, on your favorite streaming service on the Bootleg Gizzard profile, which I've been hitting hard lately. 4 minutes, 30 seconds in length, so it's a lot beefier than sort of these shorter form ones that made it onto the album, but it's a clean tone electric guitar that plays the main melody on that original demo in lieu of the flute. So something interesting that sounds a little different that's worth listening to. So there's your opening track. Let's get into the first full song, if you will, on this album. Track number 2, Countdown.
Yeah, so Countdown gets us into the first real full track of Sketches, and the first with lyrics as well. The song is actually relatively upbeat while still sticking with this kind of mid-tempo, kind of slower, similar to the opening track, but I find it to have a nice overall groove and to be quite catchy as well.
Yeah, it is quite catchy, and I think this is actually a milder example of something we have talked about ad nauseum on this show, where the music belies the lyrical theme. So, for example, a happier sounding music with excruciatingly dark lyrical themes, like Paper Mache Dream Balloon being the most obvious example throughout. This is a milder example, though, where the lyrics kind of hint at something sinister or something stressful. The lyrics themselves are a little bit vague. We'll get into them in a moment, but I get vibes that there's an anticipation or observing of societal decay, the end of the world, the coming apocalypse. You get imagery of D-Day, things like that. But the tone of the song, while it's not overtly happy and skipping along, it's a little more lighthearted, I feel.
And just to touch on the music itself some more before we get onto the real meaning of the lyrics and all that behind it, there's a lot of nice layers of keys in this song. And speaking of keys, I also love there's a great electric piano solo that begins around the 2-minute, 10-second mark. The way that it flutters back and forth between the left and right channels is really cool and funky.
Yeah, it gives it kind of a whimsical feel, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really cool sound.
Really fun.
There are lots of palm-muted strums, I noticed, kind of a whack, whack, that you hear a few times throughout the song, and also some wah pedal. You hear that wah pedal guitar a ton on this album also. In fact, that's explicitly listed in the album credits. I think Stu, and I want to say Joey also, at various times in the album, plays what's literally listed as the wah-wah guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so prevalent that it is the dedicated the wah-wah guitar. Yes. So the lyrics seem to be describing a person that is waiting for the end of the world and I guess not wanting to be late for it or miss it. It's weird, but this particular end of world scenario feels like the result of war, as the person describes things like torn clothing, destroyed buildings, and references D-Day, which of course is also the name of the next track after it, so that kind of plays into it as well. But yeah, all these kind of destruction, crumble of infrastructure, kind of almost feels like you're put in the place of a war-torn city, potentially.
Yeah, and as I look at the album art, actually, as I'm sitting across the room here from it, as it's resting on the couch, that's going to continue to be such a helpful visual aid here as we move through the discussion. We mentioned the crumbling landscape, like parts of buildings or sidewalks or roads are crumbling in a couple of the different corners of the album art. That's part of what this is speaking to here, sort of a war-torn city or society, and this narrator, this speaker of the song, is awaiting the ultimate end of the world. Like you said, it's kind of weird that it's like, oh, I hope I don't miss it. Like,
yeah,
how do you miss the end of the world? I mean, that's kind of hard to miss something like when that destruction comes out.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's like you're gonna know it's happening. There's gonna be a loud boom. There's gonna be a crazy flash of light. There's gonna be something. Don't think you're gonna miss it, no matter where you are.
Yeah, I mean, literally the first two lyrics: countdown, D-Day. I don't want to be late. For countdown, de-stress. I don't want to make a mess. It's like. Yeah, they don't want to miss it. They want to be there for it. It's been a long time coming, and damn it if I'm gonna miss this destruction.
Yeah, really. Some of the other lyrics here, I like the elongation of the single word lines lyrically in this song. Sterility, humanity, staring at me. That part comes for the first time before that little instrumental break that we mentioned. I think this person just sort of feels their life flashing before their eyes is what I'm gathering from this. But as far as lyrics go, even though we said there's a little bit of vagueness to these lyrics, in terms of sheer quantity, there aren't a ton of lyrics in this song to go through. So I think that pretty much wraps up our picking apart of the lyrics on this one.
That seems to be the case on a handful of these songs. Some of them have, even some of the longer songs have like either very simple or just very minimal lyrics. As with many songs on this album, this track seamlessly transitions right into the next, and as I hinted at already, the next song, track number 3, is D-Day.
This song can technically be considered an instrumental, although there's a very low in the mix, sort of counting down, literally, seconds. You can hear, I believe it's Stu who's doing this, counting down pretty quickly, actually. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's almost whispered, and you really, like I suggested at the top of the show, you really have to be listening in a quality pair of headphones just to make it out through the instruments.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool and groovy, kind of. I don't know if that's the right word, but like the way that counting down flows with the rhythm of the music, the time signature, and just kind of becomes part of the music, and it's just looped over and over again throughout the whole song. But it's not too loud to where it's distracting. It just kind of becomes a part of the rhythm. It's really super cool. And yeah, I mean, and I suppose it's appropriate in connection with the last one, because yeah, the last song was called Countdown, and they reference D-Day in it. This song's called D-Day and has counting down in it. So they're very much two pieces of a whole.
They're intertwined, yeah, they really are. The term D-Day, by the way, either first coined or first became popular in reference to June 6, 1944 during World War II, when the Allied forces landed at the beaches of Normandy, France. But more pertinent to the title of the song here, it's used in more of a broad sense as slang for the day that an operation or plan or event is to begin. So whenever you hear somebody in general society, not necessarily referring to that day in World War II, say, oh boy, D-Day, like you might hear a high school student, for example. I think a classmate of mine had to have used this when I was in high school, when a big test is coming up, like, oh boy, D-Day.
Yeah.
In kind of a morbid sense, it can be used that way sometimes. But that's kind of the general application of that term. This has been one of the more frequently live performed songs out of songs on this album, 19 times. They played it a ton, I noticed, in 2018. That oddly vacant year of 2018 that saw no studio release from the band. Still plenty busy on the road, though. But it actually has been left alone for a while, believe it or not. It was last played in May 2022, so almost 3 full years now, right here in the state of Pennsylvania, Joe, in the Pittsburgh area.
Oh, wow.
They broke that one out, and it remains their only U.S. performance of this song to date.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of playing the song for it to only have one. Well, how lucky us. Not Philly necessarily, but PA getting that one lone performance of this song.
Right here in the Keystone State.
That's right. One thing I wanted to point out is right at the beginning of the song, there's these bells that keep ringing that sound super spooky, as if it's some kind of warning about something, which would be appropriate going along with the sort of imagery and stuff that we're talking about in Countdown, and then just the meaning behind the name of this song, D-Day. Regardless of whatever dark imagery it may be meant to portray, this song is funky as hell. I gotta say, it's funky as hell. It's got a bit faster tempo than Countdown, and definitely more on the rockin' side of the whole jazz thing here.
Yeah, I like the foundation that Joey's microtonal bass lays down in the early seconds of this track. You hear that boom, 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 as you refer to the grooviness a little bit earlier here in this discussion. And then at about 30 seconds, Stu chimes in with that microtonal guitar motif, and he loops through that a couple of times. So that's kind of the major through line instrumentally of this track. And as that whispered counting down permeates the whole track, the song gets a little bit weird at around the 1 minute 20 second mark. It almost sounds like, and I wonder if you can kind of dig this up from the recesses of your memory like I did, Joe. It sounds almost like a garbled, distorted version of the superposition flute lick. Yeah. It's got this weird discordant, like the flute and the instruments are just shrieking in pain.
Yeah. I've made the same connection before, that similarity there.
Well, it is 2017, keep in mind. And this is not the first time we're going to allude to this on this album. 2017, New Year's Eve, December 31st, Gumboot Soup came out, which of course is a mishmash of collections of songs and sounds that just didn't end up falling onto any other album. We're going to hear a couple of sounds and instrumental parts throughout this record that I think almost got doubled up on between, this, Gumboot Soup, and Changes, which released 5 years later, but was really kind of an incubation period around this time, too. Which kind of makes sense. They were in a jazzy mood, and they made this, and they were kind of, starting the early parts of working on Changes, so it all adds up. It all adds up, that's right. Okay, so I think we've just about covered everything we can with this largely instrumental D-Day. Let's go to number 4, one of the big ones here on this album, Tezeta.
The word Tezeta translates from Amharic, which is, I don't know, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the main language that is spoken in Ethiopia, and it translates to memory, nostalgia, or longing. It is also a popular music genre in Ethiopia and Eritrea as well, named after the mode and scale that it commonly uses. Some have compared this as their equivalent to blues here in the US, although they don't really share any musical qualities other than both being heartfelt and emotional genres of music. And you touched on earlier, Spencer, when we were first getting into the background of the album, that Stu has said that the band was listening to a lot of Ethiopian jazz from the 1960s and 1970s around the time of making this. So the name of the track here, even though I've seen it spelled Tizita, rather with an I rather than an E for this Ethiopian jazz music genre, but However, this, either way, this song is a very, just in the title alone, very direct reference to that inspiration.
Yeah, and there are direct references in the lyrics, which, just briefly hitting on the lyrics, we'll get to the bulk of them in a minute. The literal words, remember, are repeated, and then later in another verse, or rather another chorus, nostalgia are kind of said, rhythmically, sung rhythmically, just getting to that background of that word, that title. Quick live stats, 14 times this one has been performed live, but like D-Day before it, it's been a few years. Red Rocks 22 was the last live performance of this song. Also notable within the context of this album is that this song was written and sung by Joey, his only song on the album, in which he sings lead. And also, this is the lone Eric appearance on the album. Eric Moore is around with the band for another couple of years after this. What was that?
I said who?
Oh, jeez.
No, just kidding. No hate to Eric, but we don't really hear him brought up a lot. Even with these older albums, he doesn't always come up super often in the credits and stuff. I think he was maybe more involved on the production side of things, and he was also running their label at the time, so I think kind of the business and end of things was more his thing, and he wasn't always super involved in a lot of the writing and recording a lot of the time, it seems like.
Yeah, so he was playing the second drum kit on this song, and sure enough, he was frequently listed as kind of the guy playing the second drum kit, Cav's more so the lead guy for much of the band's history. Another little instrumental credit, Joey also plays the glass marimba on this song, which you can kind of hear throughout the verse, or rather the choruses, maybe a little bit in the verses too. I needed the help of KGLW.net a little bit. I think this is the first time we've leaned on them for lyrical content here on this album. As for the meaning behind this song, but I don't know. Before we lean on that, Joe, did you gather anything on your own in that sense?
No, I honestly struggled to kind of come up with my own interpretation of this song. Meaning-wise, I really had to do some digging, had to, as you said, lean on our friends over at KGLW.net for this one a bit too. They collected some great bits of info, and it's just a great resource for little bits of things that band members have said in interviews and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I had to do some real digging about it. It's definitely kind of abstract, definitely kind of weird. One thing that is pretty clear that we already touched on is the repetition of the title of kind of, I guess you could call it the chorus, the Tezeta. So that's the easier part because we already found out what that word really means. But the verses get a little weirder. So according to KGLW.net, on their page for this song, it follows someone who feels changed after a realization that the universe isn't real, but in fact a hologram. Yeah, little out there, but sounds very Giz. I'm not sure I'd be too thrilled if I found out this information, but character here sounds pretty chill and happy about it. The very first verse, if I've been insane my whole life, well now I've changed into something that sees. I love the feeling, shape-shifting ceiling, my mental projection is pink. And Joey is singing in this very uplifting kind of high voice that just sounds, I don't know, excited and very pleasant, and the music, in this part of the song at least,
at the very least, accepting.
Yeah, very accepting.
If I've been insane my whole life, and I'll change. Yeah.
If I've been insane my whole life, will never change to something that seems. I love the feeling of shape-shifting ceiling. My mental projection is
Yeah, very accepting, very chill about it, and then this whole universe is a hologram thing gets even more directly stated in the second verse. Everything that lives and dies is a hologram. Nothing is as real as that. So again, kind of this weird abstract thing, and I like the juxtaposition of the lines. Everything that lives and dies is a hologram, and then nothing is as real as that. So you're literally saying it's not real, but nothing is as real as that. So it's this
Real's
weird...
not real.
Real's not real. It's a weird backwards thing going on here, but it's really fun and really catchy to sing along to. It sounds very happy and pleasant, and then goes back to the Tezeta. That sounds a little more weird or menacing or spooky. Mm-hmm. I'm using the word spooky a lot already. I think that's going to continue throughout this album here, but yeah.
Yeah, that you cover the singing very well. There's also some spoken word intermittently in this song, and I like the way that it's presented and produced. At 55 seconds into the song, hey, it's our old buddy Hantayumi.
That's right.
you hear that familiar voice, "Come here, girl." You hear that in your left channel, and then in the right channel in response, you hear this girl asking kind of genuine curiosity,
Who are you?
Who are you?
Yeah, I love how that she says that.
Come here, girl. Yeah, and you can picture the look on her face like, oh, you're interesting.
Oh.
Who are you?
And just imagine like the Hantayumi from the Fishies cover with his overalls and his hat and just that red beating eyes just come here, girl.
Yeah.
Who are you? She's also very like pleasant about it too, like not screaming and running away, but just who are you?
Yeah, that wouldn't be my reaction if I did not know anything about this band or the Gizzverse or whatever. I saw that character, I'd be like, what? No, what?
Robot.
Yeah, robot. But Hantayumi plays a role in this song, and by the way, in response to the girl's inquisitive, "Who are you?" Hantayumi responds, singing in kind of a robotic cadence, "I am true perspective."
I am true perspective.
So
Yeah.
kind of playing this god or creator or this authority type figure over the world, I guess. Like, I am true perspective. I am the truth. I contain the truth.
Yes.
Everything that is true and exists is through me. And it's all the answers you seek about the world, about the universe, are going to come through me, is kind of what I gather from his overarching place in this song.
Along with Hantayumi saying those lyrics, or quote-unquote sort of singing there, there's a couple nice layers of harmonizing from Joey that are singing along with it. So, it's kind of blended together in a nice way, him and Han singing together.
Yeah.
Then when he comes back in the second verse, where he says, "Come here, boy," and you hear this kind of like confused, stonery sounding voice go, "Are you God?"
Come here, boy.
Are you God? I am that which I am.
And he just sounds like a guy, like he just approached someone on the street smoking a joint, chilling with some friends or something, and he's just like, "God, is that you?"
Red eyes for sure.
Yeah. Like he's freaked out. But Han responds to this with, "I am that which I am," which is actually it's a slight modification of a line taken right out of the Bible, "I am that I am." It's a quote from specifically the Hebrew Bible verse, Exodus 3:14.
Yeah, that's where Moses asks God about his name. So, dude, whoever would have guessed this? Back-to-back episodes where there's a direct biblical reference in Giz lyrics. Hey, the dudes can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that lends further evidence to the fact that Hantayumi is kind of assuming a role here as a godlike figure within this universe. Before we jump past this part of the song, though, I want to back up just real quick. You alluded to that second verse where Joey begins, "Everything that lives and dies." I just want to point out the appreciation that the song enters kind of a waltzy time signature.
Yeah, it does. The rhythm kind of changes a little bit to a do-da-da-do, which is actually kind of the same rhythm we hear right at the beginning of the song.
Mm-hmm.
That's served as the intro, but then it comes back in that second verse, "Everything that lives and dies."
Yeah,
it's cool.
I love how even though certain things seem random throughout these within songs or throughout the album, it all connects in some way. It all ends up coming back in some way. You hear that, like you said, kind of at the end of the previous track and the beginning of Tezuta, that boom, dum, 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 dum. It almost sounds like creepy circus music.
I wrote the exact same thing. The beginning of it sounds like creepy circus music, only it did until I actually... So we talked about this, like the 60s and 70s Ethiopian music that was a bit of an inspiration. I came across one of these Tezuta songs that actually has kind of a similar rhythm to that, which was really interesting that I just happened upon that. I don't remember if that was shared on the kglw.net page for it or how I came across it somewhere in my research, but this one specific example, if you want to check it out just to hear what I'm talking about, it is called Tezuta, spelled Tizita, by, and I'm going to try my best, Getachew Makuria. it's spelled like get at you almost. Get at you Makuria, who is a Ethiopian jazz artist, I believe. So, but anyway, yeah, check that out. It's got kind of a similar thing going on to that intro part of the song.
Just don't come at him. He's going to get at you.
Don't go at him. He's going to get at you first.
Don't look at him sideways. At 2 minutes, there is an instrumental section of the song that lasts about 1 minute and 15 seconds, so really fleshed out the instrumental aspect of this song until Hantayumi eventually returns for the final time in the song. So we're talking about this song as kind of the first meaty part of this album after we've heard a few shorter form, no lyrics or sparse lyrics in the preceding 3 tracks. This is sort of one of the main tent poles of this album, one of the supporting tent posts of this album. And so I like how they didn't overload the listener with lyrics here. They still left that breathing room with a minute plus of beautiful instrumentation.
Yeah, and man, you just touched on that instrumental section that starts at the 2 minute mark. I just gotta say, something about the drop in tempo there, where it slows down and goes into like this very flute forward section that that just hits in such a right way for me. It's like a dopamine hit, and I love that. It's just this unexpected, slow down, weird thing that happens. It just hits so good. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on the very last lines at the end of the song and the very last little bit of Hantayumi that we hear. The last thing he asks is, "Do you remember now?" And you hear both the boy and girl's voice at the same time. I think they're panned left and right. The guy in his stonery kind of delivery again goes, "What?" And the girl goes, "Yes, I do."
Do you remember now? This my old
And then Hantayumi responds, "This my altered plan." So that's kind of a throwback to the album that came out not long before it, Murder of the Universe, of course, the altered future reference, I suppose.
Yeah, altered future with the altered beast section of that
Lots
album.
of alterations.
Yeah, lots of alterations going on. I like the disparity in the guy and the girl's reactions to, "Do you remember now?" Almost as if that preceding minute-plus long instrumental section was illustrating Hantayumi's kind of, okay, do you remember all this? As he's kind of reminding and relaying it to them, and they're both kind of reacting in their own ways. The guy's like, "What?"
Yeah.
The girl, "Yes, I do." So yeah, an interesting and powerful way to close out this track number 4.
So moving on from this big, complicated track, let's go on to another instrumental. This next song is Cranes, Planes, and Migraines.
I don't know if I've ever heard 3 words that rhyme so well, but that are just so discordant, I guess, with one another. And I think that's part of the point of this track. Written by Joey and Stu, kind of a funky time signature, I believe. I'm curious to hear your take on that in just a minute. But essentially, this one, as I gather it, kind of paints the picture of Lygon Street, which, as we mentioned, was then the home of Flightless Records, their label at the time, in Brunswick East, which, to my understanding, was kind of gentrifying quite a bit at the time that this album came out, but remained a pretty diverse, lively place and a huge hub of development, I guess, suffice to say. So cranes and planes basically cause these migraines.
Right.
All this constant development and noise and annoyance. Progress can be good, but oftentimes it can be overwhelming or ugly in the process.
Yeah, and to go along with that theme, there is actually some industrial noises, such as the sound of a train horn getting closer as if it was pulling into a station near you. Other kinds of machinery noises that are meant to represent an urban industrial setting that, they feel like their city was kind of becoming, or sort of these sounds and this chaos of urban industrialism or whatever. So that helps you paint that picture there. The song is only a minute and 15 seconds long. It's really short, but it is a really good and groovy one. It's one that I've enjoyed a lot ever since first listening to this album. I really look forward to it, and I love how Tezuta flows right into it nicely, as, like I said, pretty much all these songs do have a really good flow to them. It's upbeat, relatively fast-paced. The main groove is supplied by a funky yet still kind of dark-sounding bass line, just that do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and the drums are going all crazy and fast. It's super cool. It's a really fun kind of transitional instrumental track, and I don't know if we said this already at the top, but more than half of this album are instrumental songs. If you include D-Day with the counting on it still as an instrumental. 7 out of 13 of the songs, I believe, are instrumental and have no lyrics. So that's another thing that definitely makes this very unique.
Yeah, it's a record that really aims at painting a picture of a specific world, of a specific scene, a setting. And they do such a good job of it through all these transitional, interstitial tracks that feature quite a bit of noise, like this one here, Cranes, Planes, and Migraines. I want to go to the rhythm section a little bit, Joe. I know I hinted at my thoughts on the funky time signature a little bit. I don't know if you could make out what the time signature of that is, but either way, no matter what the signature is, I can hear Cavs pretty hard at work doing some cool stuff here.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a 7/4 or 7/8 time signature. You can count 7 beats there. So yeah, that's pretty common as far as odd time signatures go, and as far as their songs go, they've used it pretty regularly in a lot of different songs across different albums. But that definitely adds to this kind of off-kilter, disorienting feeling, I think maybe is a good way to put it.
Yeah, in addition to the train noises and the machinery noises that you mentioned earlier, I think I can also hear glass breaking at a couple of points, maybe broken windows of buildings nearby. There's a saw, maybe, like an electric saw, I think. Yeah, lots of noise going on, really hammers home the point of, like, there's a lot of construction, a lot of stuff going on in this landscape, in this kind of urban setting, and perhaps in reference to this section of the album, there are some Easter eggs in the album artwork, and there's actually a crane with a wrecking ball just right of center on the album cover art. You really have to, if you'll pardon the pun, kind of crane your neck or crane your eyes to make out some of these Easter eggs, but it's there. It's a kind of black and white sketched out crane kind of in the upper right-hand corner with that big black wrecking ball dangling down below, kind of signifying all this change, but can be progressive change, kind of in the means of progress and building something new. But like I said, kind of overwhelming to the senses in the process.
Yeah, as with the rest of this album, I just wanted to point out that there is a lot of cool, unique instrumentation going on here. In particular, there's this fuzzy square wave synth that has a very 8-bit chiptune kind of sound that I love. That's just really cool and a standout thing, and I don't think you really hear that anywhere else on the album. And there's also more flute, of course, a lot of flute everywhere. I have a little quote from Stu here, actually, that I found on kglw.net that was just kind of talking about the feeling behind this song and their experience in the city. We're always walking up and down the street all the time, going to get coffee, lugging amps, just constantly wandering Lygon Street, seeing the terrain change as new apartment buildings are erected, watching the cranes build bigger cranes. In that respect, perhaps it represents greater changes that are happening in the wider world, and this is our attempt to find beauty within a place that we spend so much time.
Yeah, okay, so pretty much what we were saying, that Stu's just talking about, like that whole urban living, you observe and see so much as you're walking up and down that street as part of your daily life. I can only imagine the impact this urban setting and the surroundings sort of left on the guys, as you mentioned in that quote, Joe, the lugging amps back and forth, grabbing lunch, grabbing coffee. We could think of our own, like, local examples of that here. Like, I'm almost picturing that main big road that you and I would take to work every morning when we were working together. There's some of those aspects going on there as well. But yeah, just sort of paints a picture of everyday life that in the hands of another artist might come off as a little bit dull and pointless. But from these guys, even though it's not a widely heralded track on the album, it's still interesting. One other little instrumental touch that I think is really fun that I want to point at. Cavs does those 4 quick hits on the cymbal several times throughout that song, pss, 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 kind of mimicking that astroturfing that you would hear on Changes a few years later. And again, we talked about how that was already kind of how Changes was already sort of developing at this time in 2017. So maybe that was another sort of doubled down upon or repurposed little drum idea for Cavs.
Interesting little fact, when you hit the hi-hat like that and open and close it real fast, it's called a bark.
A bark. Okay. I was wondering what the terminology was for that. Bark.
Yeah, I only know that because of a good friend of mine that you and I both know who plays the drums. He has referenced that before when we have played music and stuff together. So, hi-hat bark. Random and very important fact for all of you to know out there.
So we go from barking to spinning webs. Let's go to track number 6, The Spider and Me.
Let me just introduce you to my friend under the tree. Spider and me, all day we'll sit about, giggling free under the tree. Spider and me.
This song is a great contrast, coming right after Cranes, Planes, and Migraines, moving from the industrial sounds of a city to a song all about loving and appreciating nature. And it's just a perfect, we talk a lot about the juxtaposition of like darker sounding music with happier lyrics or lighter sounding music with very dark lyrics. This song, the music and the lyrics, everything's right on the same playing field here. It is very happy sounding, very peaceful, like a genuine rare occurrence of a positive, happy Giz song that's not about the end of the fucking world or something. So, yeah, and right off the bat, right at the beginning, the do-do-do-do, it's just like these happy, light instruments and keys and flute and stuff. It's so nice. And along with being greeted by this peaceful, happy, upbeat music, you're also hearing the sound of flowing water and birds chirping as if you were seated on the edge of a creek in a park on a sunny summer day.
Yeah, this is easily my favorite transition from track to track on the album, going from that congested, bustling urban landscape to and it's so palpable when you're listening and going about your day. Maybe you have your headphones in listening to this album. It's so palpable and so immediate, the relief that washes over you when this song starts. Just this, and then you hear the gentle instruments, and as you mentioned, the ambient noises, those birds chirping, and the babbling brook or whatever that water is. You got Joey playing the bass, Stu singing the lead on this song, Ambrose providing some background vocals, which... little bit of a surprise here. This album is also an oddball in that Ambrose doesn't sing lead and only appears on this one track in a vocal sense. So he only plays that minor supporting role here, but he does provide some beautiful harmonies here. This is just such a central part of the album that I look forward to so much on every time I listen to this album. Quick reference back to the album artwork. There's another little Easter egg reference to this song. There's a little spider dangling from a strand of webbing right below the boom of the crane we mentioned on the last track.
I must have missed that. I just picked up the album next to me here, and I'm looking around. I'm like, there he is.
Yeah, so there's that little spider, and this song just opens up into this pleasant, dreamy world with that nice positive tone, and it paints a picture of a bucolic setting.
The song is about, maybe unsurprisingly with everything we've said so far, the love between a human and nature, but uses the example of a spider in particular to describe their appreciation for the other living creatures on Earth. Lays in the afternoon sun, gazing at each other's beauty. The huntsman's heart forever beats. Our union is forever. Huntsman is a common species of spider found in Australia, by the way, known for being quite large and regularly being found in homes as well. I don't think they're particularly dangerous to humans from what I saw, but you do see them around. So if he is gonna sit here and talk and sing with any spider, I guess a huntsman is a good pick.
Probably, yeah. And I'm sure these probably make up a good percentage of some of the videos you see of, this freaky animal or insect in Australia that looks like it's going to kill something.
Or eat your babies, yeah.
Yeah, those are always circulating. I don't think it's one that's as big as a person's head, but still a little bit larger than normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, people should maybe take comfort in that, like you said, not particularly poisonous or dangerous, but does like to cohabitate with human beings sometimes. Joe, I knew you would take special passion and talk about some of the background of the huntsman spider there, you being our resident entomologist. I had that in my notes here.
Yeah, it's actually been, I think, a little bit since I've gotten to talk about bugs on one of their album discussions. And just the other day, I was driving, listening back to this album again, finishing up my notes and getting ready for the episode. I went out and got some lunch, and on my way home, I had the album playing, and this song in particular came up. And then as I get home, I pull in the driveway, and I look, and there is a little adorable little spider. I think it was a jumping spider right on the hood of my car, just chilling there. And it's one of those kind of like small but like soft and fluffy, like nice looking ones. Like it wasn't real freaky looking. They're just completely harmless, chill little guys. But he was really cool. And then he like crawled up and jumped like inside of my windshield wiper and just disappeared. I'm like, okay, you live there now. So anyway, it was meant to be.
Yeah, meant to be. I don't suspect though that you had a conversation with the spider much like Joey does in the background of the song at 1:32 seconds. A conversation that leads me to ask myself, what is he doing with that spider?
Yeah, you like that?
He's literally, I have it transcribed into my notes here. Yeah, you like that? Yes. Oh,
And that's Joey?
Spider and me. Yeah, that's what the credits say, at least.
Okay, I didn't immediately peg that as his voice, and I was guessing maybe that was Alex, just because I didn't notice the voice sounding really familiar to me. But I mean, we're so used to hearing their singing voices and their regular speaking voices that him doing kind of this voice, this character, whatever here is didn't stand out as him to me. But it makes sense now because he is definitely he's a silly Billy, let's just say that.
He is a silly Billy, that's right.
Joey would be the one to make moaning noises at a spider. So.
He totally would be the one, too, out of all the
we
guys
don't have
in the
to question
band.
it.
Absolutely, yeah. If you, by the way, if you, the listener, have any special knowledge in this, isn't in fact Joey, please let us know. We're always open to any clarifications on details that aren't 100% clear to us. So yeah, that's kind of a funky, weird, and maybe slightly unsettling moment on an otherwise very peaceful, laid back, and happy track. Right after we hear that echoey "Our Union Is Forever" at 2 minutes 12 seconds, Stu hits that mellotron for that main melody repetition.
Yeah.
And he's playing great music with that mellotron.
I love it. Apparently he struggled with that a bit. I think there was a quote from an interview or something where he had to do many takes to get that nailed perfectly, because it does go for a decent length and goes through some different sections. It's a really cool part of the song, and something about the tone of the mellotron, I guess it's kind of like a string sound of like multiple strings together. It sounds very like antique. Like it sounds like a melody or a sound of like an old, like you can imagine it playing on an old record, on an old a Victrola record player with a big horn coming off of it or something.
Yeah, it really does have that quality.
Very vintage to me, very old, but I love it. It's weird.
Which helps it fit right in on this album. We talked about sort of that detuned piano on the opening track here on the record, and just more examples throughout. Yeah, it fits right in. You get the mellotron, a couple of other instruments of a similar ilk, of a similar quality that we have yet to get to, by the way, as we're kind of at the midway point of the album. I want to touch on some of the lyrical content real quick. It's very basic. It doesn't take a whole lot of deep thought. The first lyrics state, "Let me just introduce you to my friend. Under the tree, Spider and me. All day we'll sit about giggling free. Under the tree, Spider and me." I love and appreciate nature. I am not afraid of spiders, really. I could never see myself being like, oh, this cute little spider is such good friends. So credit to these dudes who, if this is indeed true of them, like, hey, more props to you. That's a beautiful way to commune with nature.
Yeah. See, where I can see myself doing that.
Oh,
like just
yeah,
sitting in the
100%.
dirt somewhere. And I mean, it depends. I'm definitely going to judge that book by its cover. Like if the spider approaches and it's huge and has like a big butt, I guess, or whatever you,
Yeah.
and like and like
Thorax,
long
maybe?
string. Yeah, sure. And then like long, thin, like spiky looking legs. I don't know, something about that. That is like death. That is poisonous. But then when I see like the fluffy ones with like the big old eyes and they're all cute, like the little jumping spider I saw, I'm like, come here. Like I just let it crawl around on
Yeah,
me.
sure. I can understand that side of it at least, yeah. The other lyrical part that I want to point out is love from a spider is nothing stranger than my admiring love of nature. Am I a hippie if I have this love? We are the same stuff from the same cloth. Kind of a goofy line in one sense. Am I a hippie if I just love nature? Like, what? Loving nature, appreciating that natural beauty just makes you a hippie? Like, really? But I think the tone of the song is trying to be like, if that's what you're going to call me, then whatever. This is what I love.
Yeah,
this is how I feel.
So be it, and I love the cut from the same cloth line. Like, we're both just creatures of Earth. You know?
We're creatures of Earth. We might as well get along with one another. There is a demo version of this on Demos Volume 2, Music to Eat Bananas To. Mm-hmm. That one also available on the aforementioned bootleg Gizzard profile on the streaming services. An old-sounding synthesizer plays the vocal melody in lieu of vocals. A little bit of vibraphone in that, too. But I love it. It's just such like a wow, 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 wow. It's just like very 70s sounding and so cool. It gives the song a real different feel, but worth checking out when you get the chance.
So that was Spider and Me, a song I hold very near and dear to my heart, a very nice, pleasant break in around the halfway point of the album. Let's move on now to part 2 of the title track. This is track 7, Sketches of Brunswick East 2.
So back on Sketches of Brunswick East 1 to open the album, we talked about some of the inquisitiveness, I think was the word you used, Joe, talking about the main melody. This track 7 here obviously outlines that main melody in a little bit of a different way, slightly different instrumentation. This, by the way, coming after what sounds like a distant, discordant carousel at a carnival. Like you hear those sounds at the beginning. It's it sounds like an old carousel in the distance, like there's the county fair right down the road from you.
Yeah.
But that is actually an optagon, and that was an instrument that I had never heard of before. Turns out it's a funky instrument developed in the 70s. It looks like a small keyboard. It has keys kind of like a piano.
And is it an 8-sided shape?
It is not an 8-sided shape, actually. Shaped pretty much like a keyboard, too. But it has a small disc inside. Almost looks like a vinyl, actually. Mm-hmm. So you put the disc inside, and there are all these little presets and buttons you can play with. You can put a beat behind your sounds. It's really interesting looking. Look up a video, listener, when you get the chance if you're not familiar. But those sounds kind of melt away, and it goes into the main theme at 25 seconds. This is easily one of the jazziest tracks on the album. It takes so many creative liberties with that main theme that we heard on track 1. And there's inexplicably a little more tension in this iteration of the theme. It's a little more mysterious sounding than the first iteration, in my opinion. There's perhaps an uncredited marimba or vibraphone or something like that around 3 minutes. It's like that kind of metallic, like hammer on metal or whatever. A little brighter than your traditional keys, and it gives almost that private eye investigating the crime scene vibes.
Kind of noir sounding.
Yeah, noir, yeah, it's a good way to put it.
The biggest standout thing just about the track overall, because a big chunk of it does sound like the same melody that we have come to know from the first track, but it's noticeably slower, and that's actually a trend that's going to continue when we get to part 3 at the end of the album. It's very, very slow, but this one's just a little slower than the first. It also gets real trippy at about a minute 30 seconds in, these swelling electric piano notes that bounce around from left and right, and the bass part that comes in there is also a little different than the one that we already knew. So those are just a couple things that really do make it stand out from the initial one, but it really does in a lot of ways.
That flute continues to loosen up a little further. We talked about some of those intentional, perhaps, imperfections on the opening track and on other songs on the album, too. But yeah, there's just such a looseness and a slowing down of the whole thing here in this second iteration that makes this song so much different from its predecessor on the main theme. Really cool instrumental piece, I think, here mid-album. So let's bust out of this stony mid-album reverie here on track number 7, and let's wake up a little bit with track number 8, Dusk to Dawn on Lygon Street.
Bedtime for the birds as night closely within the moon smiles at the sun's rise.
So, Lygon Street, we already kind of touched on this earlier, but that is a road that runs through the Brunswick East section of Melbourne and where the Flightless Records headquarters was located. This is the only Cook-led track on Sketches, so it is really nice to finally hear our boy Cookie on this album.
It is, yeah. You get sort of a sampling of all the different feels with the different vocal styles and the different arrangements musically, and already, as we've gotten here to track 8, we've gotten such a delicious variety of feels and arrangements here on the album. Cook, Stu, and Alex were the ones who collaborated on this song. You mentioned the only Cookie-led vocal on the record. Stu plays the bass on this song, which is very prominent after you get that opening sort of almost like a wake-up call after that I called a stony reverie, that preceding instrumental track. It's almost like it's waking you up. Bum, 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 bum. Like, okay, new song. This one's a cool one, so pay attention. But oddly enough, it's a wake-up call, but it's evening as this song begins. And as the title suggests, dusk to dawn on Lygon Street. You hear all this cool ambient noise of evening time. You hear crickets chirping. You hear maybe some other little bugs. And you hear just some light activity around the block. And you can tell it's nighttime largely because of those crickets. But I just love the way they build the landscape and they paint this picture in an audio sense. You hear a dog barking in the distance, maybe disturbed by a passerby on a late evening walk, and you're just picturing this warm, peaceful summer night. And sort of the through line of this song is eventually night gives way to day, the sun comes up, and you hear the bustle of a morning commute, a car horn honking, people chattering, another horn, and then goes right back to night at the ending part of the song.
Back and forth.
There is plenty more to get into here, I think, but I just love the way that in musical form, a band is able to illustrate night turning into day and back to night with, they would be able to communicate that even if there were no lyrics here.
Yeah, pretty much. You could still feel it with the changing of the auditory landscape with these different sounds you're hearing. As you mentioned, birds chirping in the daytime, and then dogs barking at night, and the crickets, and sometimes you can hear, like when it transitions to daytime again after talking about it being night, there's a bunch of like muffled voices and what might be like cars passing by, like as if you're walking out onto a street in the morning. Everyone's getting going with their day, starting the morning commute. So it's really cool the way they're able to paint that, not only with directly saying it in the lyrics, which the lyrics are quite direct, actually, quite literal, which is nice for us. We didn't have to rack our brains or hurt ourselves too much thinking about this one, but also just with those sounds. It's really cool though, and they do stuff with that. I feel like they've done similar things on other projects, but this album is, I think, the biggest example of where they really use all different forms of sound and audio to paint a picture.
Yeah, and the usage of, splitting between left and right channels just to create this, almost establish a surrounding for the listener. It's just so well done. The lyrics, as we mentioned, are pretty straightforward and really didn't necessitate much of a deep dive, as you just said, Joe. Cook opens up singing "Bedtime for the birds as night cloaks the earth," and then you hear these soaring, beautiful background vocals. ba-da-ba-ba. It gets a little like doo-woppy there at the end of a couple of his phrases. Then the moon smiles at the sun's birth. Faceless night cowers underneath the ever-changing moonlit sky. Can you believe the way night falls away as the sun starts a new day? It almost sounds like one of those soothing like bedtime poems or like a children's book or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
In the second verse, Cook sings, plants raise their leaves as the sun waves goodbye. They have to stick their leaves up toward the skies as if to kind of continue that photosynthesis or go to that. Yeah, exactly. See you tomorrow, like waving goodbye. Dusk greets the horizon as day fades. Black lines bend around a cityscape while trailing off in the sunset's wake. I can foresee that dawn will bring the light as the sun gives way to night. So we're back in nighttime again. That's only 2 minutes into the song, though. The final minute or so of the track is instrumental, and I like the way that sort of eases the listener out of this track. It's very, very beautiful and lighthearted, and it's a generally pretty gentle instrumental section until the last 20 seconds when that opening theme of 4 notes comes back. Bum, 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 like kind of acting as bookends on both sides of this track.
Bookends. Maybe that term, maybe there's some sort of connection as to why you used that word there. Maybe unintentionally. But before we get to that, you mentioned that those last lyrics, it ends up at nighttime again at the end of that verse. And the sounds that I had already mentioned, the muffled voices and cars passing by and stuff, that actually comes in this instrumental section towards the end of the song. And I think that's representing that it's day again, but just without Cookie singing and telling us directly. Like, you're just hearing these other sounds change, and you're like, oh no, it is daytime again. It's not ending at night. and yeah, really cool the way that they do that. But anyway, speaking of those bookends, let's go ahead and move on to track number 9. This is The Book.
God gave me a sign. He put it in my glass of wine. A great theophany. He told me every sinner had to die.
All right, so here on track 9, we make our way to another one of those major tentpole songs on this album. This one has quite a bit of meaning and quite a bit of oomph to it compared to some of the other tracks on the album. Real quick to get those live stats out of the way. This song has been played live 21 times. That's the most of any Sketches song, including 3 times on the 2024 tour last year. So the more recent performances of this song, by the way, have included a Cavs drum solo, and I actually got into that a little bit on the Dream Setlist episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, please do check it out. This one was included, spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think that was one of my picks, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, that was one of your picks, and that was one that at the time I like, ooh, I haven't listened to that in a long time, but yeah, sounds interesting. And then when I listened back, I'm like, oh, yes, this absolutely needs to be in here.
Yeah. I love The Book. It is actually the longest song on Sketches at about 5 minutes, which may seem atypical to the average Giz album. Most of their stuff, at least lately, has been much longer songs. But longest one coming in around the 5-minute mark, and it's also one of 2 microtonal songs on the album. There's microtonal synthesizer and maybe guitar on it as well. I'm forgetting off the top of my head because I didn't write that down. When this song first kicks in, you're immediately greeted with a very urgent and alarming sounding keys that ascend and descend back and forth. There's also some car honking noises just to add to the chaos, I guess. And once it gets into the main musical motif, though, it is so damn groovy, even if it is dark and unsettling in a lot of ways. It is really fun and funky once it kicks in.
I think the car noises are actually a reminder that, hey, you're back in the cityscape again, because, you know, the narrator of this song is encountering a person on the sidewalk, ostensibly like, hey, you know, turn or burn in hell, you know, holding up one of those signs, you know, which I could go into a whole rant about some of the characters who do those things. It's a little much. Yeah. I'll leave it at that for now. Yeah. But I'm going to leave it at that and just say about this song that in addition to those car horns honking and saying, okay, yep, the little reverie and the chill mood is over from dusk to dawn, Lygon Street, you're back in the thick of it, you're back in the chaos, and I like the way you described that opening kind of swirling, ascending and descending melody. I pictured like a something hypnotic, like that swirly pattern that in old cartoons, like where the person is or the character is getting hypnotized and like, and then it settles into that main riff, which is a cool tension building kind of motif that permeates through the entire song. The book in this song, and I intentionally didn't get into too much lyrical detail on that aforementioned Dream Setlist episode so that we could talk about it here more fully. The book here in this case, I think it's largely implied it's referring to the Bible, but there is potentially some room for interpretation here, that it could be talking about any sort of religion or even a cult, honestly. This guy's trying to get anyone around him, anyone who wanders near, to follow his way of life, and he's raising the matter in such an alarmist way, like, hey, you need to do this or you're doomed, you're screwed, you're going to hell if you don't follow this, you're not going to end up in a good place. And it's just kind of like, oh, can the crosswalk light just please turn right now?
Yeah. Get me out of this.
And there are so many overt lyrical references to, yep, God gave me this message. In fact, let me just read the lyrics verbatim here. God gave me a sign. He put it in my glass of wine. To me, that's saying this guy's in a drunken stupor, and part of what he's saying is largely influenced by his drinking problem.
Yeah, put the bottle down, buddy. You've had enough. Please, let's get you to bed. Tuck you in.
Yeah,
that's enough. Yeah, They never specifically spell out, like, they never specifically reference any particular religion or holy book of any kind. It's just kind of a general, just religious fanatics in general can sometimes take things too far and try to really push things and push their beliefs on others. But this character in the song, whose perspective it's from, is really far gone. Like, it's, I'm completely not against anyone practicing religion or whatever, as long as it's not bothering anybody else. But this guy has really taken it to the max, believing that he's some sort of like prophet or direct speaker through God, and God is telling him, you need to do this, you need to spread the word and whatever, and he's really, really taken it quite far. This is painted and made even more dark in the second verse. God gave me a knife and wrote seppuku underlined. Godly suicide. He told me everyone will die. And he says it like that in this real dark voice. Seppuku, if you don't know, is a Japanese term, and it's a form of ritualistic suicide practiced by samurai as part of their code of honor. So I suppose this person's god is telling him to sacrifice himself, basically, like, because in a lot of ways it sounds like he's telling other people, like, you're gonna die if you don't stop sinning and whatever, but also like he is some sort of sacrifice or chosen one of something that needs to sacrifice himself for the world, almost as like a Jesus type figure. He's lost his mind.
Yeah, it's this verse that really hammers it home that it's like, okay, no, this is like straight up cultish behavior.
Yeah.
Like this is like a wannabe Jim Jones or a David Koresh, something
all
super
very
dark.
Mentally stable fellas.
Yeah, right. So that, like I said, the second verse really hammers home that main point because of that. I also want to draw attention to the line, these aren't fables between pages, my book's ageless and it's pageless. That last line, and it's pageless, I'm thinking like, that means it doesn't really exist.
Yeah,
it's a figment of his imagination.
Or it's all in his head.
It's all made up. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe going along the cultish route is even more appropriate, because it's not like a well-known, big, established religion that he's a part of. It's like, maybe it's like his own whole thing, and everything's completely in his head, and this is just a complete, a very unwell person, let's say.
I want to talk about some of the musical aesthetic of this song. First, Stu's vocal delivery is growly and sinister and guttural. God gave me a sign. He put it in my glass of wine.
Yeah.
It paints a picture of a creepy figure in front of you on the sidewalk who's, like we've said already, just a mess, preaching some pretty damaging, dangerous, horrifying stuff. Also, in addition to the main melody, which we mentioned already, beneath all of that, this song almost feels like it's harkening back to I'm in Your Mind Fuzz with all those crazy guitar reverb bits that it's all these high, low, mid tones just like echoing throughout, adding to the chaotic landscape, adding to the almost psychedelic feel at the same time of this song. But the band is so different at this stage of their careers. It's not just this rockin' kind of motoric influenced, krautrock influenced sort of rockin' number like it was on Mind Fuzz. You know, this is worked into this jazz influenced album. You know, so it's kind of harkening back to the old days, which the old days in this case, 3 years ago.
A long time in Giz years.
A long time in Giz years. Yeah. That's how much this band changes in such a short period of time, man.
Couple final little moments I want to point out towards the end of the track. 2 minutes 42 seconds. There's this kick-ass keyboard solo that goes hard. And then starting around 3 minutes 22 seconds after that, there's this other instrumental section with the synths making all kinds of crazy noises and a drum solo that goes totally wild. For a bit until the main motif returns at the 3 minute 50 second mark.
Yeah, I like that little stop right around that point. Everything just drops out. It's like, wait,
yep.
Boop, bidip, just isolated. And then the other instruments slowly return behind it after that.
Yes.
I love just that screeching to a halt of the song, except for that mellotron or the keys melody there. It's like it recaptures your attention as the listener. If you're zoning out or spacing out in any way during that long instrumental section, zoom, you're right back there. Okay, so there's plenty of sinister content here on the book, track 9. Let's let the sinister feel continue a little bit, albeit in instrumental form. This is track 10, A Journey to Shell.
In the title of this song, the S is, of course, in parentheses, so you are, I guess, meant to also read this as Journey to Hell, which may or may not be appropriate for the sound of the song. Another groovy as hell instrumental track, man. That squealing synth and Ambrose honking away on the harmonica is really ripping. And there has been a little bit of harmonica throughout this album, but it hasn't really been highlighted that much. And I feel like this song, it really gets to shine a bit. You know, you already mentioned before that we don't hear much of Ambrose other than a little backing vocals at one point. So cool that we get to hear him let a rip like usual on the harmonica here. I love it.
Yeah, he's really honking on it. Wow, wow. Almost like outlining that crazy synth. I don't call it a melody. It's just like a synth. Yeah, I don't know, synth noise.
Yeah,
it contributes to the aesthetic they're going for, though. Before I go any further on this song, I want to make a gratuitous SpongeBob reference at this time. Anyone else care to enter the Fly of Despair? For those who don't know that episode where SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward end up on the Flying Dutchman's ghostly ship as their as his unwilling crew members, SpongeBob and Patrick kind of embrace it in a goofy way. Squidward, meanwhile, keeps mouthing off and giving the Dutchman attitude. The Dutchman reaches into thin air, zip, undoes this little zipper, which is a fly, apparently, just this freestanding fly, throws Squidward into this void, and he goes, just screaming past all these eyeballs, this crazy maniacal laughter. That's what this song reminds me of.
I did not know what the hell. I was like, the Fly of Despair, but as you described the scene, I do remember that vividly.
That's the same episode that went famous when SpongeBob and Patrick are piloting the ship and are scraping it on the rocks. You're good, you're good, you're good, and damaging the crap out of the ship. Anyway, back to this instrumental. A cool, briskly jogging bass line powers this one from the get-go. Boom, 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 and it just keeps going.
A lot of good bass on this whole record, and I'm a big fan of that as a bassist myself. I love
slap
it.
of the bass. A briskly
if I
jogging
had a
bass
for
line.
Every time I Had to hear that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I can only imagine. You also hear car horns, disembodied laughter, that swirling synthesizer we mentioned.
The car horns are a recurring theme.
They are,
come
yeah.
back a lot in the last, especially like across the middle chunk of the album. There's a lot of beeping.
You also hear, did you catch this? About 42 seconds, it sounds like a group of people chanting something.
I didn't really pick up on chanting, but at that moment I wrote that there's some weird, crazy laughter there that kind of sounds like Scooby-Doo to me. It's like, and I don't know, gave me Scooby-Doo.
Ring Gizzard and the Gizzard.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. So we said this is an instrumental, but it's the squealing synthesizer and all the other elements we've already mentioned make this one of the trippiest tracks on the album. The title we alluded to makes a pun on the hellish soundscape, but also points a finger at the Shell Gas Company. KGLW.net gave me some help here. Shell and other gas companies, those giant conglomerates or whatever, guilty from time to time of contributing to pollution, climate change, environmental disasters, and of course, what is King Giz if not super environmentally conscious and advocates for that. So that's what the S being in parentheses there, differentiating a journey to Shell and also a journey to hell. That's the background on that choice to make the title as such.
Yeah, I also read that there was one of those Shell gas stations up the street, I guess somewhere on Lygon up the road from their studio, from the Flightless HQ, that they would frequently go to. They would just go and buy snacks or whatever, when other random little things they needed from the store there at the gas station. So in another way, the song is like the guys just on their journey walk to the Shell, but also, as you were kind of pointing at, a bigger reference at this big oil gas corporation and the destruction that does to the earth.
Picture the album cover of Petrodragonic Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
At 1:44 in this track, everything abruptly stops. It's almost like this, like everything gets zapped away, and all the instruments and noises disappear. That lasts for all of 1 or 2 seconds, then everything's back. Chaos again. And after a short bout of that, 2 minutes, it feels like we're about to blast off. There's like this ascending tone. It's almost like a rocket ship or something's about to go.
Crazy.
And then the tape speeds up briefly. And then that lasts for like 2 seconds. And then it slows back down. Then the instruments seem to give a hint at a track to come. Perhaps?
Yeah, not the direct next song, but 2 from now, actually. It does a kind of slower variation of the melody from You Can Be Your Silhouette. The do, 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 do. Just for like a couple seconds, and then it just kind of ends.
Yeah. So ultimately not a ton of substance to this song, but it is another one of those instrumental tracks that really contributes to the auditory landscape of the album as a whole.
So that's A Journey to Shell. Let's move forward to the next track, another instrumental, and a much-needed, much more chill one after the last 2 chaotic songs. This is Rolling Stoned.
Yeah, much needed chill out spot here in the album. Track number 11, getting close to the end here. Believe it or not, this song was actually performed live a few times by Giz, 4 times over 3 consecutive U.S. shows in 2017. Hasn't been heard from since, but ultimately it's one of those minor role players. Fun fact, though, this was written by Alex Breton of Mild High Club, and it was originally a Mild High Club song. It first appeared on a demo cassette. You heard that right. Cassette. Legitimate cassette
What
tape.
year is it?
Yeah, these guys are also very into the retro stuff like the Giz, which is pretty cool. It appeared on a demo cassette they had dropped a couple of years before Sketches came out. This is also the lone appearance on the album of Mild High Club's Andrew Burt, who plays the wah-wah guitar. It's heard mostly at the beginning. You can kind of hear it in the mix there. Wah, 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 wah. Provides more of a texture than a melody, necessarily, kind of at the beginning. But yeah, true to its title, Rolling Stone, this one just really mellows out, man. And you hear just various instruments. There's kind of that main motif, and then some random sounds sprinkled throughout the rest of the track too.
Yeah. Overall, mostly a very flute-focused song, and again, with more of that clean wah-wah guitar, kind of giving it this jazzy. God, I've used the word funky a lot here, I feel like, but I'm going to say it anyway.
It's appropriate.
Jazzy, funky kind of thing, but in a very, very laid-back, chill way, and the song couldn't feel more appropriate, Rolling Stone. I mean, this very much sounds like, where they had a little smoke session in the studio and then wrote this one, and as we've said, much needed after a couple crazy-ass songs. So, I love it, and I honestly, I don't have too much to say about the song overall. There's not too much about it that really stands out to me, but I do love it. I think it's a really nice chill break, and I appreciate its place on the album, but otherwise I don't really have much else to say about it.
Yeah, it's a good kind of jumping off chill point of the album, like I said. Not a ton else for me either on this track, except for a couple of interesting instrumental credits here. Lucas, Joey, and Stu all play piano parts on this track, apparently. Joey also plays the omnichord, which is an electronic version of an auto harp. For those who don't know what an auto harp is, it's shaped like a harp, but generally it's placed kind of laying on a table or on a surface. You push buttons with one hand to sort of trigger or register various chords and then strum the strings with the other hand. Fun fact, I played one once in music class in grade school. Didn't go well. We basically split up into groups of 2 or 3, and one person pressed the buttons, one person holds the music book, the other person strums. I was the button presser, and I was getting the chords all wrong, and I was frustrating the 2 kids who were with me. Anyway, those are just a couple of the kind of cool little fun factoids here of who's featured on what instrument. That, by the way, 2 minutes, 2 seconds is where that omnichord appears. It's kind of that funky psychedelic kind of playing like I guess, psychedelic. I keep coming back in my mind to the word psychedelic sounding thing. That's Joey with the Ambrose harmonica underneath that. So that's pretty much all we have on Rolling Stone. Let's move on to the penultimate track, number 12, You Can Be Your Silhouette.
You make time to clean up the cobwebs off your mind. You may find yourself unwind.
You Can Be Your Silhouette is easily the most positive and uplifting track on the album. Aside from maybe Spider and Me as a close contender, that one's very positive and happy, but this one is truly uplifting and has a real message behind it. This is also the single track of Sketches that I have gotten to hear live. And of course, it was at that acoustic show in Detroit last summer that I have brought up so much recently, but it was really special to get to hear that. I know me, along with some other fans outside of the venue that I talked to, were hoping for something from this album, so that was a great one to get. This is another song that is incredibly chill and nice to listen to, with a nice positive message behind it as well. It's really comforting in both musically and lyrically, and just a really nice way as we get towards the end of the album here to have another soft, cozy, like almost cafe music kind of sound to it, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen mostly detractors, but I think even people who think positively of this song too will call it elevator music or muzak, like you said,
right.
Cafe like background music. It's got that bossa nova feel for it, kind of that 1950s or 60s influenced, originally kind of South American feel, that gentle tapping on the rim of the drum, and it's made to be like background jazz adjacent music.
Like the Wii Shop music. That's like a bossa nova.
And true to this feel for the song, I was actually re-listening to that Detroit acoustic show. Thanks again to the bootleg Gizzard profile on Spotify. Joey actually said at the beginning of the performance of the song at that show, kind of singing along loosely to the melody, "We've entered the music portion of the gig. We'll see you in the elevator soon." I'm not sure if you remember that.
I don't even remember that. No, I got to go back and listen to it again. Wow.
But I do remember kind of listening. This is a part of the show where it seemed like the guys were getting a little loosey-goosey, maybe a little all over the place.
Oh,
they
were drinking during that show. Like they were just, that show was, it was great. The set list was great. They were awesome, but they were just kind of like hanging out and doing whatever the hell they felt like. Like it was just, they were chilling. They were throwing back beers. I think they even took shots once or twice during the show, like right on stage. So yeah, there were some moments where things almost got a little too loosey-goosey to where like it wasn't the tightest sounding, but I loved it and had fun. So yeah, that was cool.
Some of the standout instrumental parts in this song, the wah-wah guitar throughout, kind of at the beginnings of the verses, Ambrose with the soft harmonica at the end of the choruses.
You can't see your silhouette.
Just continuing that feel of we'll see you on the 15th floor.
Yeah,
as this really feels like elevator music, especially that opening part before the lyrics.
But like
begin.
the best elevator music.
100%.
Like the best, like when you walk into an elevator and you actually notice the music that's there, and you're like, this is kind of cool. This is that elevator.
Yeah,
music.
It takes away the discomfort of avoid eye contact, don't bump the person next to you. Just you know. Another cool little instrument thrown in here. Joey plays the güiro, which as an instrument I think I've alluded to on the show before. That's that Latin American rhythm instrument. Yep. Hollowed out gourd with ridges, played by scraping a stick across those ridges. Stu at the Forest Hills performance night 2 on the last tour, August 24, said about this song that it's about being who you want to be. And that really, as it fits the album, I almost see this album personally as one long trip or a series of a couple of trips, like a slice of life while tripping through parts of it. Mm-hmm. This song to me represents that stage of, end of trip or post-trip enlightenment or clarity. Like the trip kind of takes you to a place where you're like, oh, I've seen the light, or like I've gained a little nugget of wisdom or knowledge. And this song really kind of opens that door for your mind to be like, you can be whoever you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about letting go of stress and anxiety and just becoming the person you truly want to be, as well as telling the listener, like, no matter how tough things may seem right now, you are more than capable of making it through and being a happier version of yourself. Honestly, it's a really nice reminder for me, because, I really need to hear stuff like this sometimes. It's really easy to get caught up and lost in the everyday struggles and get myself worked up about little things or worries about the future, especially. So it's nice to come back to a song like this that just says, hey, you're doing fine. You are going to make it. Just keep your head up. Just keep going. It's very reassuring and can be very meaningful sometimes.
When you just stop and take a look around your shop, you may feel your blues all drop. That's just one cherry-picked section that I grabbed from sort of the middle of the song. But when you scroll through the lyrics of this on Spotify, they're almost like gathered into mini paragraphs. Mm-hmm. When you make time to clean the cobwebs off your mind, you may find yourself unwind. And all the ticking stops, and you may find your time instead. You can be your silhouette. It's like these 3 lines grouped together into all these various spins on that general theme. If you just take a breath for a moment, if you just stop, take a breath, relax, you'll realize that, you can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I honestly don't have much more to say about the song. It's just sweet and beautiful and very meaningful to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people out there.
Absolutely. And by the way, when I speak about these, this sounds like the end of trip and clarity and enlightenment at the end of said trip. I speak from a point of a guy who has never tried any drug whatsoever. Yeah. So this is just me from very far on the outside.
Sure you haven't.
Guessing.
Yeah.
Just guessing. Yeah, this is what I can sort of surmise from what's portrayed in the media and movies, shows, whatever. But it is the perfect place on the album for this song. just that penultimate slot on the album where that big salient point is made, and such a positive and uplifting one at that.
So with all that said about this beautiful song, let's go ahead and bring it on home with the closing track. And we alluded to this already. You already know what's coming. This is part 3 of the title track, Sketches of Brunswick East.
I just have to say, the very beginning of this track, that tape mess up sound effect makes me feel like Ice 5 is about to start. It's that like my mycelium had just ended. We talked about Ice Death on a previous
you're
episode.
Expecting to hear boom yeah.
Instead, you get the most lighthearted and arguably a little bit of a downer number here on the final track, and that's really by design, because we talked about the progression of this main motif, the Sketches of Brunswick East iterations, this being number 3, the third
trilogy.
and final. The trilogy, yeah. Really. So after that kind of crazed tape distortion noise, the main theme is reprised, but it's sleepier, slower, and a lot more lethargic. It's like you're coming down from the trip. You're just kind of thinking, oh, what a trip. It's time for bed. It's time to go pass out.
As I kind of alluded to earlier, we are now even slower in tempo than we were on part 2 of the song, Sketches of Brunswick East 2. It is really slow and like almost kind of sludgy. Like you're just, almost like you said, like if we're going to go with the description, the analogy of like sort of being in a trip throughout this album, this is the end of it where it's like, it's all worn off and now you're just tired and like you're just like dragging your feet back to bed or like in kind of a weird post high like stupor where you're just like, whoa, what just happened?
Oh, my head.
My head. Yeah, exactly. So, I think it very much has that feel, but I also feel like it sounds, along with it being slower, definitely a bit darker and almost kind of sad in a way too. Like, oh no, the album's over. You know, it gets kind of like a sad, like we've come full circle. Like that's it, folks. Like show's over. Hope you've had a nice flight with us.
I have. B74. Oh, sorry, wrong album.
Oh yeah, that's a little. Yeah.
I had that in my notes very similarly. Touch of melancholy here, or maybe more than a touch. It's pretty overwhelmingly down tempo, a little sad. It's almost like slowly walking down a deserted street at night, contemplating life. Like, what did that all mean?
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Yeah, and you know what? That's really appropriate that you just said that too, because and. Not to jump ahead too much, but it is a short song. There's no lyrics or anything to touch on. But it ends with some ambient noise that sounds like rain and maybe some cars driving by. Like there's a little bit of that kind of return of that landscape, painting with the sound there at the end of these sound effects. So I could very much connect this with like walking down a street at the end of a long day at night or something.
Mm-hmm. And I want to harp on once again just the immense musical talent that each of these guys are. They're all multi-instrumentalists, and the one that I want to focus on here is Cook, who plays the fretless bass on this song. And at about 27 seconds, right there near the beginning of the track, you hear that fretless bass come in. It's kind of this... It almost gives that drunk cartoon character sound, but it's just so appropriate to the dreariness of the track. And as you mentioned, that ambient noise at the very end, there's really not a, kind of going out with a bang or a moment near the end of the song where you're like, okay, it's ending. It's almost like you space out for a split second, you don't realize this is ending. And as a result, you get the softest and probably the most melancholy album closer in Giz history to date.
Yeah.
Unexpected, right?
For sure. I don't have any other ones that could possibly come to mind, and you might not expect that from what is otherwise a really kinetic, there's a lot of ups and downs, but overall like a very energetic, quirky album, and it just kind of ends on this very dour kind of note. It's interesting. So There's one thing I want to point out that I find kind of funny. Right at the end of the song, the instruments are just sort of ringing out, and you hear, like I said, there's kind of a rain sound, maybe like cars going by, like you're on a street at night. At about a minute 55 seconds, there's this low gurgling sound. I swear somebody's just like ripping a huge burp right there. One of the guys definitely burped into the mic, and they just left it. There's like this burp. I'll play a little clip of it right here. But yeah, interesting thing that stood out to me while preparing for this episode that I didn't notice before. So yeah, I guess maybe that's the little bit of humor in an otherwise dark and gloomy sounding ending to the album. That's like our final little like giggle, like of somebody just fucking burped into the mic at the end.
I'm just going to go ahead and blame Stu for this one until I hear differently, because he has been known to, in the middle of songs on tour, to just...
Oh, really? Okay.
I listened to a song recently, and literally in the middle of an instrumental part. Okay. I want to say it was at the Gorge or Red Rocks, one of the marathon sets.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and find which one it was.
So anyway, yeah, that is it. That is the end of this strange, quirky trip of an album, Sketches of Brunswick East. That was a lot of fun to go through there. We're going to do our usual here and give our top 3 tracks as well as our least favorite. So Spencer, I'm going to let you go ahead first.
Okay. In the order they appear on the album: Tezita, The Book, and You Can Be Your Silhouette. This is an album where I suspect we might have a little more overlap than usual, but I want to hear yours now.
Okay, really, really close. We're matching up on 2 out of 3 there. Actually, one of the ones you picked was like so close in contention with another one. I actually thought I did. Let me just read mine first, and then we'll talk about it. I had Tezita, Spider in Me, and The Book.
I knew that would be the one.
Yeah, and I was so close. So The Book and Tezita were really big standouts for me that I picked right away. But Spider and Me and You Can Be Your Silhouette were 2 that I had pinned up against each other, and I swore I actually thought I picked You Can Be Your Silhouette, and looking at my notes, I wrote down Spider and Me, so I'm going to go with that. But man, we're so close to being synced up there, and they're really even for me. They're both, Spider and Me is more fun and quirky and happy. You Can Be Your Silhouette is the more meaningful, real touching song that has more like emotional connection with me, but Spider and Me is just fun, so I guess I went with that one. I don't know. But yeah, Tezita and The Book, 2 big hitters, 2 bangers off the album, really, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. We did talk off mic, by the way, about putting a slightly different twist on this part of the show. We wanted to choose a favorite instrumental or interstitial, but 2, right, I think was what we eventually agreed upon, or do you want to go just one?
Yeah.
Or two.
I have 2 here.
Okay, I have 2 also.
Okay.
My favorite instrumental/interstitial tracks, Sketches 2. I love its jazzy wanderings and looseness in the middle of the album. It's such an interesting and intricate palette cleanser at that stage. And Rolling Stoned. It's stony, chill vibes, man.
Okay, you went with the much more chill instrumentals. I picked 2 other ones. My favorite instrumental tracks, I picked Cranes, Planes, and Migraines and A Journey to Shell. Oh. So, yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, Cranes, Planes, and Migraines, and yet that's one song. That sounds like I'm naming 3 things. But that one always just really hit for me. There's a lot of cool bass lines throughout the whole record, but that one always just really hit for me. And where it comes in earlier on in the album, it's just a cool, energetic groove, and A Journey to Shell is like pure chaos. It is so bizarre, but also energetic, very faster and higher tempo, and I don't know. And I loved the Ambrose harmonica on that, like that.
Oh yeah,
the like honking harmonica that comes in between the other instruments. Yeah, it's just cool. How about our least favorite songs?
Don't hate me. I put Cranes, Planes, and Migraines.
Wow.
Now listen, I don't hate it. I just found it the least musically interesting on the album, in my opinion, although it does fulfill the purpose of a sketch on an album, because kind of by definition, these sketches, in a sense, are painting a picture and illustrating a landscape and bringing you to this place. They're not necessarily supposed to be full package songs. It still does a good job of that within the album as a greater piece, but unfortunately, that's where it falls for me. What do you have?
Okay, fair enough. I also went with an instrumental track. It's kind of hard not to, because as we said, 7 out of 13 songs are instrumental, and all the ones with lyrics are really, really good. I went with Sketches 3. the closing track on the album. I feel like it's interesting how it progresses, that title track on the, from part 1, 2, and then 3. But yeah, I kind of touched on this as we talked about it, but it's just kind of gloomy and not the best ending, in my opinion. Not my favorite way for an album to end. I'll still let it play out when I put the album on and listen to it through to the end. I don't hate it, but it doesn't really do anything for me. And that melody, I've kind of already heard it enough by the time I get to the third part of it. It's just not different and unique enough to stand out or be anything special to me.
Okay, some unexpected twists on this segment of the show.
Yeah,
Interesting.
we started off being close to lined up, and then it just went all over the place. So
hey, that's why we do this part of the show.
Yeah.
Just
one of these days, maybe our top 3 and least favorite will all sync up, but it has yet to happen.
And now it's time for a quick most of what we like.
Most of what we like.
Most of what we like, for those unfamiliar, this is the section of the show where we recommend any other non-Giz media, whether that be other music, other podcasts, other books, movies, shows, anything else that we're digging lately outside of the world of Giz. Joe, you take it away first.
So first up for me is actually a book, and well, more specifically, the audiobook version is what I've been quote-unquote reading, listening to while working and stuff. I'm a big fan of the game Red Dead Redemption. Specifically, I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2 lately. I'm very close to the end, and it's a fantastic, amazing game. But I found a book on Spotify called Red Dead's History, a video game, an obsession, and America's violent past. Basically, it takes things from the game and compares them with the true history of the American West around the time period when the game takes place. So it's really cool. The narrator is actually the voice actor for the main character in Red Dead Redemption 2, the voice actor that plays the part of protagonist Arthur Morgan in the game. So it's really cool to hear his voice if you're someone who's played the games. I will say, if you're just playing the game for the first time, or you plan to eventually, there is some things brought up in the book that are kind of spoilery to the game, so just be aware of that. But if you've already played it or don't plan to, you're just interested in American history and how it can be shown in a video game like this, I think it's a really great listen, or a great read if you prefer to read it physically. It's really cool getting to hear stuff about a game that I love while also learning about America's past and some of the very dark things that come along with that and things that were going on in this country at the time. So really great read. And one other quick little thing is I actually just finished watching Better Call Saul. I really enjoyed watching Breaking Bad. That was last year. I just watched it for the first time. All these years, had never seen these shows. And, my girlfriend got me to watch it, and then we went right into Better Call Saul after that. And I'm finally done with that, and man, those are 2 of the best television shows ever made. Absolutely mind-blowing. I think, if anything, I maybe lean towards liking Breaking Bad a little bit more. It was just a little more chaotic and violent and gripping in a lot of ways, but Better Call Saul is amazing. All the acting and the writing is fantastic, so there's a reason those shows are so popular. So if you're like me and didn't watch them for the longest time, all this time that they've been so popular, give them a shot if you're looking for a new show. Absolutely fantastic. Watch both of them. But yeah, that's all from me. Spencer, what have you been enjoying lately?
Nice. Yeah, my wife and I actually need a new show to watch these days, so maybe one of those 2 is in contention. As for me, I'm bringing 2 albums to the table today, a couple of unheralded albums from their respective artists. First one is by Link Wray, a guitarist, a legendary guitarist who I've mentioned on the show before. He was kind of that trailblazing rockabilly / surf rock guitarist from the 50s and 60s. Godfather of the power chord, some people call him. Early pioneer of the use of tremolo in rock music. This album that I'm talking about today, though, his self-titled 1971 album, kind of a left turn in his discography. It was influenced by his very poor upbringing in the Deep South as a boy of Shawnee tribe descent. He and his family sadly encountered a lot of intense racism in the community they lived in the South. But the music on this 1971 self-titled album of his is really unique in that the songs range from not rockabilly and surf influence, but very gospel influence, some bluesy stomps, some swamp rock, and some of the instrumentation is really cool in that there is a lot of improvised percussion. Think some of that old like washboard, the spoon on the leg,
Yeah.
some stomps on the wood floor. It's not all that primitive, but it's definitely more stripped down, kind of southern influenced. Really cool, kind of bare bones listen. Fun fact, the only reason I ever discovered this album was because one of the songs off of it, Fire and Brimstone, was on the MLB The Show soundtrack years ago. A
Okay.
game that I used to get anew every year.
All roads lead back to baseball for you at some
Always.
way or another.
You know it. This one does not, though. Spoiler alert. The other album I'd like to talk about today is the U2 debut album, Boy, from the year 1980. This was before the Joshua Tree, before Rattle and Hum, before the late 80s ascension to worldwide fame for Bono and the Boys, and before Bono became a mildly controversial figure down the road. This debut album of theirs is very influenced by their 1970s Dublin underground and punk scene roots. So a really interesting listen in that. The songs bear some influences of that punk, some Joy Division, which was really big slightly before that time. Even some touches of new wave, believe it or not. They'd straight up put on their Flock of Seagulls hats on a couple of tracks on this album. Wow. So a really eclectic grouping of songs.
And I ran.
Yeah. It really sounds kind of similar to that style. So yeah, the U2 album Boy from 1980, definitely worth checking out.
Awesome. Thank you for the recommendation, Spencer. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode today on Sketches of Brunswick East. This has been very fun, a very unique, quirky album in their discography, as a lot of them are. I don't know if they're all unique. Are any of them unique? I don't know. But let's just go with it. This has been really fun. Again, if you don't already, please consider following us on social media. We are at Podagon Infinity on X, Instagram, Facebook, and more recently Blue Sky as well. And please reach out to us if you have a question, comment, concern, anything Giz related that you want to ask us, or some sort of story you want to tell. Please reach out to us. You can DM us on any of those platforms, or just send us an email, podagoninfinity@gmail.com.
Well, our next episode will see us step away from the album discussion format for one cycle, still nailing down some of the details on what exactly we are going to talk about. I will tell you it'll be about music. That's the very least I can tell you right now.
Something about music.
It won't be an improvised cooking show or no, don't worry. We're going to stay within our lane here. We will be talking about something that is not in the album discussion format for the next episode. So we'll have a few more details a little later on for that. So stay tuned for more on that. But again, thank you so much for listening to this discussion on Sketches of Brunswick East. This was a fun one. Joe, can't wait to see what we decide to take on next time.
Indeed, me either. No matter what we end up doing, it's going to be a ton of fun.
Absolutely. So until then next time, I'm Spencer.
And I'm Joe.
Later, Gators.
Woo!
You hear these ambient noises in the background, crickets chirping?
Crippets.
Tasty cake crickets.